Welcome to the Nate KG podcast. I'm your host, Nate KG, and this is a show dedicated to exploring the nuances of jump rope, where I talk with jumpers of all skill levels, backgrounds, and fitness goals. On this episode, I speak with jump rope legend and world champion Sebastian Deeg. You can find him on YouTube by his name and at Ropeletics on Instagram. Sebastian's been jumping for over 2 decades and was one of the first jumpers I found when I started jumping. As you'll hear about in our chat, I used to rewatch his videos frame by frame over and over and over. Please do yourself a massive favor and check out the videos that are linked in the show notes for this episode. You do not want to miss them. We discuss so many different topics, including advice for beginner recreational jumpers, thoughts on leaving competition and becoming a former competitive jumper, the importance of being patient and working on fundamentals, what it takes to be an elite jump rope athlete, and loads more. All of the show notes for this episode and Sebastian's social links can be found over at natekg.com. And if you're a returning listener, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a quick review for the show. It helps so much. And now, please enjoy this conversation with Sebastian Deeg. Sebastian, welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited for this one because I've been watching you since I first picked up a jump rope. So to do this interview is really, really fun for me, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks. Thank you for the invitation, and thanks for having me on your podcast. And I'm looking forward to talk a little bit about jump rope, of course, about the history, the development, and yeah, looking forward. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. Let's start with when or where you are in the world, and then when you first picked up a jump rope.
All right. So I am in Rüsselsheim, which is a town close to Frankfurt in more or less the center of Germany. And I'm with the Flying Ropes. That's the name of the team, the Flying Ropes, which are based in Rüsselsheim as well. And I am part of the team since 1996, the end of 1996. And I think when I joined the team, they already existed, I think, a year, maybe 1.5 or 2 years. So yeah, that's where I am at the moment.
Let's go into that history like you were talking about, because 1996 sets you up as being one of like the original legendary jumpers, you know, which I think for a lot of folks who might be new, especially folks who have picked up a jump rope maybe since 2015 or later, or definitely within the last year or two from recording this, there's probably not a huge awareness. So let's go back to when you started and kind of paint a picture of, I really want to know, like, selfishly, how your team started, because that's very early to start a team, and then kind of what your thoughts are in the history there. All
right. So as far as I know, the reason why the team started back in the days was my former coach, Signe Richter. She saw a demonstration at some form of festival, and that was the first moment where she actually saw the sport of jump rope, rope skipping. And she decided, because she was coaching a female gymnastics team, that she wants to start with this group of people rope skipping. And she just ordered ropes in the United States somehow, and just decided to start with a group of, I think it was like maybe 8 or 10 girls to do rope skipping. And she started to connect with, I think there was maybe 1 or 2 other teams in Germany to communicate and to get an idea of how to start with like the very first tricks and stuff like that. And that's basically how the team started back in the days.
That's really cool. Was she experienced with any kind of like rhythmic or ribbon gymnastics or anything? Was that her experience at all?
I think she had a loose gymnastics background, and she was always into sport and all different kind of sports. And for some reason, that one show she saw back in the days was the reason why she was so excited about the performance, and that something like this is possible with the rope, that she wanted to do the same with her team, with her group of 8 or 10 female gymnasts.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I do want to loop back around to training and the way she trained you. I'm really curious about that. But before we before we go there, let's stick on the history for a second, and kind of, because I mean you're very fortunate to have an incredible understanding of the sport and to have seen it through multiple decades. And I'm really, really curious what your perception is as far as like what's changed, what's evolved, what differences do you see, what excites you, because you've seen a lot of growth.
Yeah, when I look at the sports, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago compared to what you see today, it's like two different worlds. The sport has developed so fast and quickly, especially let's say, last maybe 8 to 10 years. I can remember the very first competitions and championships. You've been super fast and one of the best jumpers when you had like 80 to 85 in 30-second speed. And when you compare it to today, that's like nothing. That's not even the warm-up speed anymore. So that's just one small part of rope, one small part of jump rope that has developed tremendously over the past 20 years. But also when you look at freestyles, it doesn't matter if single rope or double dutch. Back in the days, everything was a little bit slower, less dynamic, more basic. And if you look at the sport today, it's so many different sports that come together in jump rope. It's gymnastics, it's somehow dancing and b-boying, breakdancing, and everything comes together in jump rope today. So it's so much more dynamic, and also for the athletes, definitely more intensive, right? It's two different sports when you look between 1999 or whatever and today.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's, man. When was the just out of curiosity, when was the first world championship you went to?
1999 in St. Louis.
So I really want to know about that experience. And I know that that's like super specific, but I'm so curious what that first competition was like for you.
So it was for several reasons a very big thing for me, very big experience, because it was the first time I was in the United States. It was the first time traveling with the team such a big distance. We had a few trips in advance, which were mostly within Europe, but that was like actually the first trip outside of Europe with the team. I was 14, first time World Championships, and that was the first time you saw not just jumpers from Europe, but also from the United States, I remember Taiwan and some other Asian jumpers. And there was like a whole new dimension and experience that I experienced there, right? So I still remember the gym. I still remember the hotel. I still remember like the atmosphere and everything. And it's fun to see. Yeah, it's fun to see if you watch some video or some footage from this competition. It's fun because you actually see the video and you know, okay, I've been somewhere there and I saw it actually live and everything. So yeah, it was a fun experience for sure.
That is, as you're describing that, I'm like, man, I'm like really excited. That sounds so cool. Like, I personally have not been to a world championship yet. It just hasn't been part of my journey up to this point. But when you describe that, I'm like, I gotta do that. That sounds so cool.
It's I don't know. It started like, I don't know. For me, somehow jump rope is more than just like a competitive sport. It started from the beginning that it's such the community is growing for sure, which is a good thing. But many years ago, it was like a very small community and everybody knew each other. And it was like family coming together. And besides that competitive part of the journey, you always were looking forward to meet like all the other jumpers from different countries and to see each other And today it's a little bit easier because of social media and everything. Now you can stay connected almost like 24/7, right? But many, many years ago, you saw each other maybe once or every 2 years only for world championships. And that was like such a big thing. And you were looking forward to the competition, of course, because you want to compete, you want to get your score, you want to see how you end up, but you also want to meet your friends again and talk to each other, have a after competition party and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow. That is so that is so neat, man. On that tangent of these world championships, I really want to dig into your thoughts on what it takes to be, world championship level, an elite competitive athlete. And I know you have plenty of experience with that. I'd love to dig into your early training, like your first couple years of training. And then I'd like to kind of talk about how that changed or evolved as you went into a very elite style of competition.
To be honest, at the beginning, the preparations and practice for like international competitions was strict, but always also still with a lot of fun, and you haven't been too strict about it because it was a competitive sport, but we didn't have the attention of what we have now, right? It's growing more and more competitive, more and more spectators and stuff like that. But it was just a fun thing to do because you're not really earning money with it. You just do it because you love to do it and you want to compete because you're a competitive athlete and you want to see how you end up competing against jumpers from other countries. But after a while, practice became more strict and more structured. And there was a time of maybe, 6 or 8 or even 10 years where I competed individual as well as team. And that's somehow like actually extra work and time and effort you have to spend in the sport. And that means at the same time that you lose a lot of time with like your family and your friends because you wanna prepare yourself. You have that goal of competing at regionals and then nationals, qualify for Europeans or World Championships. And I mean, of course, you do it for yourself and you do it for fun, but at the end, you also want to have the best result possible. And that means that you have to spend a lot of time in the gym and just try to get the best out of it. So it became definitely more strict and structured during the time and over the time. But since we never been like paid athletes or something like that, I guess it was always like self-driven, never like from outside. If I had decided one day, I don't want to do this anymore, I could easily done that anytime, right?
Mm-hmm. Has that changed at all for you? Because I mean, you've done a lot of performances, you've done a lot of different. I'm imagining it's primarily performances that drive revenue with jump rope. How is that process kind of adjusted now that you're now that it's a skill that you can monetize?
Yeah. Like you said, when it comes to demonstration, sure, you can earn some money with it. I never had the goal to make this like my main job or something like that. But I still feel like I could stop jump rope anytime whenever I had the feeling like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore because it's no more fun or too much pressure or it takes too much time and I want to focus on something else. I think this hasn't changed for me during the 24 years or whatever. But you're right. Of course, you can, when you reach a certain level and you're, promoting yourself and you're working with agencies and whatever, you definitely have the chance nowadays to make some demonstrations and performances and to earn a little money with it.
Have you ever gotten to the point, because you mentioned the pressure or not having fun with it or stuff, have you ever gotten to that point with jump rope where it stopped being fun?
No, not really, because I think, of course, there were moments and times where I didn't really enjoy it as much as I used to sometimes, especially when you had a bad competition or when you have whatever final exams and still have to practice and go to the gym and everything comes together. Then there are moments and times where you think like, okay, this is no fun at all, and why am I doing this, and blah, blah, blah. But I never really had that super hard moment where I was like, okay, this makes no more sense for me. This is no more fun or whatever. And luckily, I never really hurt myself or never got injured very badly. I think the worst thing was like maybe 4 or 6 weeks of resting and healing, but I never had like a super bad injury or something. That makes it definitely harder to like come back after your healing and you want to compete again and get into it. At certain injuries, I think it's super hard to go back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's go into the go hard or go home series, because we were talking about this a little bit before we started, and I was telling you, I'll share the story again, that for me, you posted this video like 13 something years ago. I saw this video within the first couple of years of me jumping, and like I was telling you, I saw it when I first got to the point where I could start to see skills and understand what I was watching. I saw this, and I remember watching a bunch of your skills and be like, wait a minute, I feel like he did this, but there's no way that's even possible with the rope. Like, that happened several different times in the same video. And I was like, who is this guy? This is crazy. And I just studied your form, studied your skills, studied it, because it was awesome. I would love to know a little bit on the backstory as to like why you created those videos, because you have a couple of them.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think like 13, 14 years ago, I just felt like I want to videotape like my best skills and skills I haven't seen a lot in like just one video. And YouTube was just one platform that just came up and was one opportunity and chance to like seek attention and like promoting the sport, promoting, of course, a little bit of yourself and stuff like that. And that was the reason why I just thought like, okay, I just videotape a lot of tricks, bring them together in like just one video, have a small intro. And for some reason, I think there was just a saying or sentence I picked up somewhere in a music video or album or song or whatever. I decided to call the video "Go Hard or Go Home." And yeah, that's basically the story behind it. I just felt at that moment that I want to videotape and record like the coolest tricks I was able to do during that time, and just put them all together into a 2 or 3 minutes video.
Were any of those skills, did you get stuck on them? Like, were you frustrated trying to get them on camera at all? Or were they all skills you kind of already had locked down?
I think most of them I nailed like first or second try. There are definitely 1 or 2 tricks that took me a few takes. I think you had that one on your Instagram account as well, the awesome Annie jump through your leg release. Took me definitely, I think, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And I think I had 1 or 2 other tricks as well that took me several. The kip coming up and pulling the rope under your feet before you land on your feet. That was another one. And yeah, it was actually a lot of work, because there was the time when you didn't have the phone with the camera, so you had an extra camera, you had to videotape it, put it on your computer, needed some extra software to cut it and stuff like that. So nowadays you would probably do a video like this within, I don't know, a few hours. And back in the days it was like a week of work or something like that.
Except for the part where you consider what skills you were doing, because how many years had you been jumping at that point? 10
10, 11, 12.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Wow. Yeah. So you were very deep already into jumping. Cause I mean, and that makes sense. Cause those skills that you did were very, very high level.
Back in the days, for sure.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Nowadays, you see way more crazy and creative stuff, which is a good thing, right? Because the sport develops and pushing itself, and tricks are getting harder and more complicated. So that's totally fine. Yeah,
I'm personally really grateful that you posted that video. I know there was like a handful of other people. I mean, I would definitely consider you probably one of the first, if not the first person to like legitimately put jump rope videos on YouTube. And like that first group of people that put jump rope videos on there, like I am eternally grateful for you and the rest of those people, because that was like, that's all I had. Like back to your point about, world competitions back in the day, you'd only see people when you show up to competition. Well, there wasn't Instagram when you were learning, when I was learning. And so to have these YouTube videos, I mean, I'm not even kidding. I literally downloaded your video, everyone's videos, and I would just scrub through like frame by frame to see what was going on.
Yeah, that's something that has definitely changed, that nowadays you can just go on Instagram, go on YouTube and whatever, and just see a lot of videos and combinations and footage and stuff like that. And at the beginning, we mostly had like workshops after the competitions, or you had to travel to specific workshops to actually learn from other athletes, because there was no Instagram, there was no whatever. So you had to learn from other jumpers in person, which was a good thing, because there's usually a better jumper that teaches a less better jumper, but then the better jumper always learns from the other one as well, because everybody has like different styles, and that's the positive thing about workshops in person, I guess. But
it goes back and forth.
Back and forth, exactly.
I'm really curious to know, like, when you're training with your team, what is the process? Because like you're saying, it's very limited exposure to new skills unless you go to the workshop. Did you go to like every single competition and workshop, and like that's how you were exposed to new skills? Was it internal creativity? Like, how did you go about learning? I mean, because you, in that video, once you were 10 plus years into jumping, I mean, you had that's a very wide skill set and a very creative skill set. So where did that come from?
Yeah, mostly through workshops, mostly learning from other jumpers from other countries before or after competitions. Or I have a lot of friends in Belgium, because I was maybe sometimes I was just traveling there for fun, and we jumped a little bit and had a workshop, and that's how I guess my style mostly developed. So just picking up ideas from other jumpers, mixing it with like my style and my ideas, and just trying to create something new. I guess
that makes sense.
Mostly how it worked many years ago.
So those collaborative moments, those really like they stuck with you for months and months and months, and that's kind of what carried you through the year.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And then usually after competitions or after the last competition of the year, you usually have a lot of like free time where you can be creative in the gym, because you don't have to work on routines and stuff like that. And that's where you start to create new tricks, create new combos, and just be creative with yourself and other team members.
That makes sense. Which season of competition do you think was probably your best? I know there's a lot of them to kind of go back and like look through.
Yeah. I believe maybe 2008.
Okay. Yeah.
There was still, so I think my last year of Masters individual competition was 2012. And my strongest year was 2008. Yeah.
Gotcha. And what did you change anything with training at all that year? Or did you just everything kind of clicked, or what would you consider kind of the factor that led to the success?
That's a good question. Probably because I had like no final exams or no like super stressful year. So I was able to focus a little more on jump rope. And I was 23, so that was maybe like my strongest age combined to jump rope. And I think it was just a mix of a few facts, like the age, the time I was able to spend in jump rope, that came together, and that was the reason why it was like my strongest year.
When you were training around then, and like let's take a few years, maybe half a decade before that as well. Once you kind of hit that, elite jumper level, were your training sessions very structured? Were they this, then this, then this? Was it very unstructured? Were you creative? How much did you drill your routines? Did you drill them a lot, a little bit? I'm really curious the way you approached, with as much detail as you want to share with those sessions.
So I'm pretty sure that year practice was like very structured because I was competing individual as well as team. So I had to make the best of my time in the gym, and that year we've been 3 times a week in the gym: Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, each day 2 hours, maybe 2.5. And usually we started with team practice. So we spent like an hour, maybe a little longer, on like all the team events, and then at the end I had to spend like that extra 45 minutes to an hour to practice my individual events, so freestyle, 3 minutes, and triple unders. So it was structured for sure, and I believe that the last maybe 8 to 10 weeks before we actually traveled to South Africa, we spent more than just 3 times a week in the gym. So we had more time in the gym and had the chance to repeat our practice and our routines a little bit more to make sure that we are well prepared for the competition.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So you had that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think it sounds very similar to what my experience was as well. Very, very, I think a common way to approach, especially with like the team dynamic. I mean, it's a lot of stuff to train for when you've got team events and you've also got individual. It's a lot of stuff to be on top of.
True. The only event you don't have to practice on top is 30-second speed, because you have it in the team competition as well, the 4 times 30-second speed. But you still have the 3 minutes triple unders and freestyle on top, which you have to practice at the end of the team practice, even though you're very tired because you already did all the team events. So
yes,
that's intensive, but also pushes you a little bit to reach like your goals.
Mm-hmm. It's probably, I would imagine it's very useful too, because it simulates the competition, but in a much tighter time frame.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you have a skill that's like your nemesis? Because I feel like a lot of people have a skill, like for me, it's the Sunny D. Like I can do a Sunny D, but that skill is very much like hit or miss. And if it's a miss, I don't even bother trying it because I know it's just going to be rough. Do you have any skills that are like that?
Yes. So I'm not a huge fan of CL, to be honest. Like CL,
Gotcha.
every combination or whatever.
I honestly would not have guessed that with how clean your CLs are. Like on it, like I really would not have guessed that.
Yeah, but I always feel like CL is not like my biggest friend. But one trick that mostly doesn't really work is like coming up from a push-up with an AS double under. Mm-hmm. I tried it so many times that it worked maybe once, maximum 2 times.
I feel like that one time you got it was for the go hard or go home. I feel like I saw you do that on one of those.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
The AS double up is crazy difficult from a push-up.
I don't I don't like it at all, and it's not working very well now. But overall, actually, I'm a fan of like powers and releases, and I like to combine both of the tricks. But AS double under out of a push-up is for some reason a trick that never really worked very well.
Well, maybe it's because it's extremely hard.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that might be.
And backwards kamikaze is also another trick which works but never feels like 100% comfortable.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. The backwards kamikaze is like, I actually just did an Instagram live with Mike Fry like a month or so ago. We were working on that skill. There's so many moving pieces with that like if you get even one of them slightly wrong, the whole thing either doesn't work or it feels like gross, and it's a very weird skill. I'd love to hear about maybe one or two, probably just one, stories that stick out in your mind about trick circles, because I know obviously you've probably been to many trick circles after competition and workshops and stuff, and I've spoken with other jumpers, and your name is obviously thrown around, right? Because you've been there, like you've been doing stuff, or like games of like jump or whatever, those kinds of things. I'm curious if you have any stories to share of a trick circle or a game of jump or something like that.
I think the first thing that comes up to my mind is I think he called it rope dunk with Reisig, like the battle between two single rope athletes. That was a fun experience and very exhausting, but I liked it a lot.
Can you describe like what it was and where it happened?
So it happened after, which competition was it? I believe World Championships. After it happened after some international competition, and for some reason we had a workshop at the end. Lee Reisig had the idea, I believe he had the idea of a rope dunk, which means a battle between two jump rope athletes in single rope, and one athlete starts with the trick and the other athlete has, I believe, three tries to repeat the trick, and it goes back and forth till one of the athletes is not able to repeat the trick. And that was a very intensive experience. I lost, but I was totally fine to lose against Lee Reisig, so that's cool. But that was a fun experience because we had a lot of people cheering and watching, and we actually kept going for a few tricks. It was actually kind of a long battle, but I don't know what the last trick was. Probably something with CL. I don't know. I definitely lost, but it was a fun experience, and I still like to think about that moment.
That's cool. I love how it's really cool to hear those stories, and I feel like there's so many like similarities and common things that we see repeated in jump rope, because especially with where we're at now currently with the sport, both on the competitive side and the recreational side, you see so many jumpers who are not aware of competition, not aware of these stories, but they do similar things, and there just seems to be so many similar patterns with how people approach jump rope and kind of go about it. I'm really interested in what your thoughts are and what you want to accomplish with jump rope moving forward, because as someone who's been in it for over 2.5 decades, right? You've been in it for a very long time. What is your focus now?
What is my focus now? So the plan and the idea was to compete one last time, 2019 2020 last year in Canada for the team World Championships. But due to COVID, that was not possible, and we decided that we don't want to compete at the digital virtual competition this year. So I'm not 100% sure if I am able to compete one more time with my team. Probably not, but I still want to be involved in performances, shows, and maybe in workshops. because I still feel like I want to share my knowledge. I want to keep jumping rope and keep enjoying what I love about the sport. And we'll see how that works as soon as we have the whole COVID-19 issue behind us. Hopefully we will have the chance to perform soon again, because that's something I actually miss at the moment. Because it's always nice to like entertain people with what you can do and what you actually love to do, and to get a reaction from the audience for what you're demonstrating. And there are still so many people who have never heard about jump rope and who have no idea what's even possible with such a simple sports tool, that I still feel like I wanna keep pushing and keep promoting jump rope a little more and see how it goes. But competing, probably individual, definitely not. Since 2012, I stopped doing individual competitions. Team competition, we will see. Depends on my teammates, and if we have the motivation and the chance to compete one more time together. Fusion competition is still something I would probably enjoy, but that takes, I guess, a longer preparation, because the style is so different to what you usually do at regular jump rope competitions. So yeah, we'll see. Still wanna be involved somehow for a little longer. I don't feel like I wanna leave this all behind and quit and never wanna hear about it anymore. Nah.
Do you have because I know jump rope is life, but what does Sebastian's other part of his life look like? What do you do? Like, let's dig into like some more like professional stuff. What did you study university?
So I studied international business administration and industrial engineering. And besides jump rope, I love to do all kind of sports. So I love to play basketball. As a young child, I used to play soccer. I love to play beach volleyball when I'm on vacation. I started a few years, maybe 2.5 years ago, a little bit with CrossFit, but not competition orientated, just like staying in shape and just for fun. I like to go running and just basically stay in shape, and I'm just enjoying sports a lot, all kind of sports. I like to stay besides jump rope. I don't want to dig in too much into like one sport. I want to
be in all of them.
Be able to do a little bit of, exactly. Yeah. Be able to do a little bit from everything, but yeah.
Did that start like when you were really young? Like you always wanted to be in everything?
Yeah, exactly. So it started with soccer. After a while, because of my sisters, I was into horse riding. Then I started to play table tennis, regular tennis, and then after a while, jump rope came into my life.
Wow, that's a huge set of skills before you got into jump rope. And then after that, you started late?
I think I started late. Yeah, I started with like 11, 12.
Yeah.
If you compare it to athletes nowadays, they usually start maybe 6, 8, maybe 10 the latest.
Yeah.
So 12 is actually late, I think. But on the other hand, maybe that was a good thing for me, because I never really had big issues with like my knees or elbows or wrists or something. Because sometimes I feel like when you start too early, you might get more in trouble with hurting or with injuries.
No, I think you're right. I think the funny thing is, I think for a lot of people who are not as deep into the competitive world might hear that statement and think, "What do you mean late? That's so young." But it's actually you're right that it is late considering the scope of competition. And I've talked with Selena Furman a lot, and she's mentioned this idea of, when we have these youth athletes participating in jump rope, to your point about injuries, there's a lot of potential like habit overload or overuse, because in jump rope we do, like many sports, we do the same thing over and over and over. But with jump rope, it's a lot easier, I think, to do things incorrectly. Like you wouldn't twist your ankle every time you play soccer necessarily, but sometimes when we're doing, doubles, triples, or push-ups and stuff, we're like bending the body, or our knees are bowing, all these different things that don't necessarily get corrected because it's just the coach just doesn't see it, isn't aware of it, or something harmless, but then it ends up years and years later compounding. So I think that makes a lot of sense that and also your history with sports, I would imagine, very much protected you in that sense, because if you've got all these different things that you're doing, all these different ways to move your body, then it would balance out, I would think. Yeah, that's really interesting. With man, there's so many different things I could ask you. I think I want to go back to the engineering for a second. We'll probably bounce back to the sports or something. We'll go all over the place. That's how my brain works. But with the engineering, I'm really curious because I feel like a lot of jumpers, it seems like a lot of jumpers, especially a lot of jumpers who reach a high level of jumping, tend to go into something engineering, or tend to go into something very, I guess, a very difficult field. And I'm curious, do you feel like jump rope influenced your choice of study? Do you feel like your interest in engineering pre-existed jump rope? Was there a back and forth? Like, I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
For some reason, I feel like I wanted to do something that is totally different to jump rope. A lot of people ask me, why don't you study sports or do something like that, because you're blah blah blah. But for some reason I felt like, no, I'm in the gym for already, I don't know, 3 or 5 times a week doing jump rope and other sports. Why should I study sports and even spend more time in the gym or whatever? So I felt like I want to do exactly the opposite, something. So I have like 2 different worlds. When I feel tired of studying and tired of the engineering world, I have jump rope to clear my mind and do something totally different. And when I'm tired of jump rope and I'm tired of doing this, I go back to engineering. So that was also the reason why I never felt like I want to do jump rope as a professional job, because I felt
like the separation.
Okay, exactly, I like the separation. And what happens if I focus on jump rope, make this my job? What happens the day when I feel like super tired of jump rope and I don't want to do this anymore? So I felt like, no, I keep this as an hobby, do performances, earn some little money just for fun with it, which is fine. But I never felt like this should be like my professional job. So I always wanted to have to go back to the engineering thing, something in the opposite direction compared to like jump rope, to have those 2 different worlds. So I always had the chance to switch back and forth when I felt tired of one of them.
Do you feel like, I'm going to ask this question very simply and straightforward, but I do want to dig into it. Do you feel like jump rope made you smarter? And I know that's a very weird question to ask, but that's kind of the essence of, like, to me, it makes a lot. I haven't seen a huge amount of research, but to me, it makes a lot of sense that, because of the type of skills we're doing, because it's obviously motor intensive, but there's also a lot of visualization. There's a lot of, in terms of left, right brain, looking at all the places you cross, how much you do in one jump, it seems to me like that would lend itself towards sharpening the mind. Do you feel like that's the case for you, or what are your thoughts?
Yes, I wouldn't call it made me smarter, but you're right. In some ways, it definitely helps you to understand certain things faster, pick up certain situations and moments faster, and being able to deal with this maybe new situations faster, because jump rope is such a complex sport. Plus, due to like the competitions, those competitive moments in jump rope, you only have like that 75 seconds to like perform. You have to focus on that moment, or in speed 30 seconds. You have 30 seconds to perform. You don't have like a second chance. I think those are a lot of facts that come together that helps you to focus in specific moments, and being able to perform in specific moments that also help you in your professional life and maybe work environment. Plus the social skills you learn as well, especially when you're able to teach at workshops, because you have a trick and you have to break it down in certain steps to explain it to maybe someone who never saw that trick before. And that also helps you to understand sometimes the way to a specific goal, helps you to break down certain processes, and in this case tricks, for example.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have a very like systems oriented type of mind? Because I mean, as someone who went into engineering, I would imagine that there's some kind of bias towards that, but how do you find yourself very systems approached with I guess not even just jump rope, but like most things in general?
I think so, yeah. Sometimes I feel a little bit nerdy.
You're talking to the right person, because I have notes upon notes upon notes and systems and things organized all over the place.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like the same. Yeah, I would call myself definitely nerdy when it comes to certain things. Yeah.
Does that ever play a role like with like productivity or like work habits and stuff?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Nice.
Definitely. Yeah.
That makes sense. And then do you, because like for me, like the more I've done, the more I've really embraced that nerdy systems mindset over the years, I find that there has been crossover, and I've viewed skills differently the more I've kind of done that in other areas. Do you feel that at all, or does it kind of separate? Like, I'm curious, getting into like work habits, like batching, like the batching process, or like creating content and scheduling things and then doing things. And then also something very separate, like learning basic programming, like Python or something. Going through these different things, it's systems, right? It's not engineering necessarily, but it's that same idea. Doing that, when I go back to jump rope, I'm like, oh. And then you start to like mentally organize things.
I think it's comparable, and it's when you compare it with jump rope. It's, for example, when you want to create a routine or freestyle, you usually have an idea in your head. You try to structure your idea. You want to make sure that you have whatever, a little bit of everything. You want to have multiples, you want to have crosses, rope manipulations, releases, and sometimes you write it down, you try to get a structure, and then you try to find the music, and you try to make it look very nice, dynamic, try to use accents on the music. And I think that's something you can copy paste into your like professional world as well, right? Or into your job environment, because sometimes you have a goal or a certain thing you want to accomplish, and to accomplish that goal, you have to structure your ideas and your process at first, and try to make sure that the way to your goal is fine before you just don't want to start without a plan, right? You want to make sure you have a plan, a process, and structured everything. That makes it at the end for you easier as well, right? Because if you just want to start and see what happens, you usually lose a lot of time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I guess it's the same with jump rope. You want to structure, for example, your practice. You want to structure the way you build up a routine. You want to structure your ideas you have before you actually start with the process. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I always find that there's crossover between jumpers and jumpers who are like engineers. I feel like there's a lot of things that tend to fit together very nicely. I don't know. To me, there seems to be that correlation. I don't know if it's that like people who have an engineering mindset like jump rope, or if jump ropers become engineers. I don't know. I don't think there's really any causality there, but I like to imagine that there might be.
Yeah, maybe that's true. You're right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of engineers there. Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about a couple different things. Well, a lot of different things that you feel are benefits of being a jump roper. In addition to some of the things that we've talked about, do you feel like jump rope has taught you anything? And we're kind of on that subject now. And if you do, what are those things?
It definitely taught me a lot of things. One thing, for example, is patience. Because
I feel like, to be honest with you, I feel like that's one of the most common answers is like patience, because you get whipped in the face every day.
Yeah, because you will figure out very quickly when you start with jump rope that usually it takes time to master a trick. There are not a lot of tricks once you reach a certain level that you just pick up like that. Sometimes you have to work over and over it again and repeat it 100 times till you master it maybe the first time. And that's the reason why I think that it taught me patience. And it also taught me how to speak to other people, social skills, coming back to workshops again. Because when you travel and when you're doing workshops in other countries, you want to behave and you want to make sure that you
you kind of meet them where they are. Like you're not. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are all things you learn during the time, and I can remember the first time when I had to do a workshop. I was like, as a staff, I was like super nervous, and I was like, no, I can't do this, and I can't speak English, and please, I don't. At that time, the coach just was like, this is your chance. If you don't do it now, I don't know if I ask you next year again. So,
no pressure.
So I had to do it, and I mean, the jump rope community is a super friendly and supportive community, right? So there's no reason to be like afraid of being a staff or of teaching tricks. There's always an athlete which is better maybe in releases, but then you're maybe better again in multiples. And there's not like the super athlete out there that can do everything. And there's usually always some areas that are a little bit stronger, other areas are a little bit weaker. Yeah, but coming back to what taught jump rope patience, for sure, a lot of social skills because you're working with other athletes, younger athletes. The typical answers that you have to invest a lot of time to reach your goals and stuff like that. But the typical answers. But it taught me definitely a lot. That also helped me, like we talked about it previously, that also helped me a lot in my like professional work environment.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So I'm curious, like what would you say to someone, you know, as a world level elite jump rope athlete, right? Who really understands the history of the sport as you've lived through the majority of it, right? I'm curious what advice or just thoughts that you would share with someone who's brand new. And there's two different people I'm thinking of. And the first one we'll talk about is someone who's brand new and is jumping recreationally. No particular intents to become a world champion or to compete, but they're just what thoughts would you share with them?
I mean, if you just want to do it for you, to stay in shape, to move, to just enjoy what you're doing as a recreational jumper, no pressure, and just take your time, enjoy what you're doing, make sure you have a good coach that explains you the right technique. Technique is something very important that you should focus on from the beginning, but because when you start with a bad technique and your coach is not giving you the right advices, you keep the bad technique, and that will have impact on your muscles, joints, bones, wrists, and everything, and you don't want to injure yourself. As a recreational jumper athlete, just enjoy jump rope.
Yeah.
There's no pressure. It's like when you play soccer just for fun. Why there's no reason to be 5 times a week in the gym or whatever. Just whenever you feel like jumping, if you don't want to do competitions, you can actually jump in your living room just for fun, watch a YouTube video, or just jump for 15 minutes. And if you feel like, okay, this is it, I don't want to do this anymore, then just leave the rope and relax. So there's no specific advice I would give to a recreational jumper besides just enjoy the sport and the beauty of it.
Yeah, I want to highlight 2 things that you said. Number one, this focus on fundamentals. I think in my own experience talking with a lot of people who are new to jumping, it's obviously very difficult to understand what's good advice from bad advice, clearly, because there's a lot of people putting out a lot of information, not always for the same reasons as you and I. But I think it's really important to highlight this idea that even if you're jumping recreationally, having the right mechanics are important because of what you said. A, you're not going to hurt your body, which is primary importance. And then B, you're not going to be limited to learning skills in the future, because if you learn something very incorrectly, one of the most common things that I think I see, I don't know if you see this too, people who don't know how to jump during a side swing. And then you and I know that has an extreme domino effect into many, many other skills. So I think that's really important. I think also what you said, you moved by it pretty quickly, but it's a question that I get asked a lot, and that has been a very big topic, especially in the past couple of months, which is take your time. You said take your time and there's no rush. So many people, it seems like, they see other folks jumping and they think that they should be there in the same amount of time. Can you share your thoughts on that? I think, to me, I disagree with that. I think you do as well, based on what you've just said. I'm curious if you have any thoughts to share for someone who does feel this pressure that they should be better, faster.
So I don't know. I think you should definitely learn the basics and the basic techniques and make your way to the harder tricks step by step, instead of just starting, knowing some basic tricks, watching videos on Instagram and whatever, seeing some triple unders and stuff like that, and starting immediately with this kind of tricks, because you want to build up your skill set. You want to make sure that you know the right techniques, the right timings, the right movements, and everything else. And I know it's hard, because it's like in every other sport, you want to reach a certain goal as fast as possible. You might want to skip some steps in between. But at the end of the day, it will cost you more time, because you
got to go back.
Because you have to go back, and you're missing a few steps in between. And also for your body, it's necessary to make sure that you give your body, your mind, and everything the time to process what you're actually doing, because it's more than just swinging a rope and jumping in rhythm. Once you do whatever, multiples, doubles, triples, or releases, it's timing, it's a lot of technique, it's also some sort of feeling you need to have for your rope, and that usually takes just time to get this feeling and learn all those steps in between. It makes no sense to skip a lot of steps in between. I know it's hard, because you see all those videos and you want to do the crazy, cool looking tricks, but at the end of the day, like you said, you will have to go back and repeat those steps in between to make sure you can reach even higher goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's man, you've said it perfectly. And I think that is, it's really important for people to hear, because you're really right about that. And I think even outside of sports, to something very similar, like myself, I've been trying to learn guitar very, very slowly, not consistently, but I've been trying to learn it. And I'm fortunate that I have a friend of mine who built guitars, and he absolutely loves playing guitar. And so he's been getting more and more into it, and he's well beyond my skill level. And so he's been giving me advice like, hey, do some of this, like go try some songs, but then like, don't do this. I'm like, oh, why not? He's like, well, if you learn this way, if you don't understand how to do this with your hands, then you're going to be limited with all these other things. And I feel like it's very similar.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what the same situation you will have in the jump rope world as well.
Yeah.
You're just limited.
Yeah. And then what are your thoughts? Same thing, kind of advice for someone who's just beginning, for someone who is in the competitive world and wants to compete at some of the highest levels and wants to go to world championships and wants to do well. What are your thoughts are?
Yeah. First of all, don't rush. It takes time. Pressure is not helpful at all. Not for your mind, not for your body. It's okay to watch like a lot of videos from all different levels, because I think it helps to support your creativity within the sport. But like in the recreational level, try to build up your level slowly. Don't skip any steps in between. Make sure you have a structured way, and start with some. After a while, once you feel comfortable and once you started to practice the different events, try to start with some very small regional competitions, see how it feels, if you like the competitive environment, the pressure you have and everything else. And usually after, you will feel, at least that's my opinion, very quickly if you're a competitive athlete and if you are built for this situation and this kind of competition situation. And if you like those moments and that competition feeling, just try to make sure your practice is still very structured. Try to go step by step, make your tricks a little bit harder, a little bit more complex, a little more combinations, a little more dynamic, add some gymnastics and stuff. But also for gymnastics, try to make sure your technique is clean. Try to have a gymnastics coach that teach you gymnastics the right way, and not just let's call it jump rope way. Just go and watch the videos and make sure it looks good.
So true.
Techniques is just very important. It will help you becoming a better jumper. It will definitely help you to not get injured in the future.
So whether you're recreational and that's all you're doing, or if you want to be a world champion athlete, both of them, you need to have patience.
yeah, definitely. Patience and fundamentals. Fundamental, yeah. Otherwise, it won't be helpful if you put too much pressure on yourself. That won't help you to become a better jumper, better athlete.
Have you ever gotten stuck on the skill and like you couldn't get it, and then you stopped doing it and then you just magically got it like a couple months later?
I'm pretty sure I had the situation. Let me think if I have.
I know that's probably a lot of years ago to think back to, because you've been a phenomenal athlete for such a long time. I'm sure that, I feel like that's something that tends to happen earlier in the journey.
Maybe the double under kamikaze. Forward. That was one of those tricks that never really worked, and I was like, okay, this is not possible for me. This trick is impossible. And after, I don't know, a break of a couple of months, or even the situation that you got called out in front of some people, and you were like, okay, now I'm gonna make this. And then all of a sudden it worked. So sometimes the pressure of a small audience is helpful. So
I feel like
double under
that makes sense, because I feel like that skill, and we talked about like the backwards kamikaze as well. When it comes to strength skills, I feel like you got to go 100%. And if you're at 97%, it's not enough for some of these skills, because like I don't know if you felt the same way, but like I feel like when I do these skills, I can like in my body feel the difference between like if I'm doing a double under kamikaze, I can feel the difference between like I really went for it and like I tried, but it wasn't all the way there.
Definitely, 100%. Yeah, you're right. You need to be focused 100% and have this energy of mastering this trick. Yeah.
Full send mentality.
Yeah.
Nice. This has been such a good conversation. We've already gone through an hour, and I'm like really impressed that it went by that fast. That was really quick. I would love to kind of I think I'd like to ask two more questions. I'd like just two more, and then we'll wrap it up. Second last one would be, looking back at you from the beginning of your jump rope journey, considering all the things you've accomplished, all the things that we have yet to discuss. I'm sure we could keep going for hours and hours and hours on end, especially with your performances and your accomplishments and all those things. If the version of you right when you first picked up a jump rope could see you now, what would that version of you say about who you are now? And this, you could extend this outside of jump rope too, if you'd like to. Either way.
I think I never would have thought that jump rope gave me like all those moments, situations, journeys, because when I started with jump rope, this was like there was not even a sport in Germany. There was just a fun thing to do. A group of 8 girls and a little boy, that was me. It was just, I don't know. That was just the reason why I started was my sister. She started before I was starting with jump rope, and that was just a hobby, just something that was fun to do and something I mastered the basics very quickly. But I never would have thought that it gives me the chance to travel like more or less all over the world and do crazy performances and shows and workshops, and last but not least, a lot of new friendships and friends all over the world. There was not the intention when I started with the sport. Definitely a good thing, and I'm very proud and happy about it. But there was never I never would have thought that it would get so big. Yeah.
So the big main question of the podcast, which we're already on the tangent of, is what is jump rope to you? We're kind of already halfway there, I feel like, but
it was and still is just a huge part of my life, because it's 24 years now. It's my 24th year, and I still love to do it. I still enjoy jump rope a lot. I still feel like I want to keep going for a little longer. I know it's getting harder to stay on the competitive level because I'm not getting younger, right? And it's just a huge part of my life, and I still want to be part of the jump rope community for a little longer, share my knowledge, and maybe have a few more years of performances, shows, and demonstrations. After that, I guess I still want to stay involved somehow and see how the development will continue.
You'll start doing raps like Avery Ansa after that. Once there's no more quads and double under kamikazes, you'll move to the rap life.
Yeah, true. Once I have the feeling that I'm not really able to do like the tricks I want to do, I will quit, because then I feel like, okay, I don't want to be like the old person jumper.
What's wrong with being that person though?
I don't want to be. I don't feel like I want to be the person the younger ones are talking about. Like, he's the old one. He's doing the weird stuff now.
That's just called being legendary.
I'm not sure.
I do actually really I would like to get your thoughts on this, because I do feel like there's a lot of jumpers who, especially once you hit like the college or university level, once you technically, if you're not competing and you're not practicing, your skills tend to lower. And especially after you hit certain ages, you're not going to be throwing down double under push-up kamikazes after a certain point, or like, backflips or double under frog, triple under frogs, quads. What is your, like, how are you thinking about that moving forward? You said you're not getting younger, which none of us are. And I'm also in the camp of like, I wouldn't consider myself in prime competition phase anymore, right? And I think about this a lot because I find myself blocked sometimes, and it's frustrating.
Yep.
Do you feel that? And if you do, how do you approach that?
I feel that 100%. It's very painful because in my head I'm still like competitive and I want to do it all and everything.
Yes. Literally, yes. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. But then on the other hand, my body is like, no, you need a break. Take it easy. You're not 25 anymore.
Yeah.
So it's painful, but I start to accept the fact that I'm not going for any new crazy tricks anymore, because I'm not willed to injure myself now with 35. I want to stay healthy. I still want to do my tricks that I enjoy to do, and the tricks I'm 100% able to do, and I'm still willed to do some rope manipulations and new combos and stuff like that. But I'm not willed anymore to go for like super crazy, super new tricks. But yeah, it's painful to know that that you're not
in the prime.
Yeah, exactly. Your prime days are over. You have to accept it, and you just I don't know. That's painful.
That's why I'm like, this is a conversation I don't think really comes up that often, but it is something that I think about, especially when I go work out. Now, granted, the last year has been a little bit unique because I've definitely not been training normally, so my body is weak for that reason as well. Big time. But I think that's probably why it's come up in my head so much, is like, oh man, like if I can't do quads, like I'm gonna be really bummed out.
Yeah, true. And that's one of the reasons why, on one hand, I feel like I wanna be able to choose when my last competition is, because the plan was last year because of COVID, blah blah blah. So I feel like I want to do maybe 2021 my last competition, but now after a break of almost 1.5 years, at the end of the day, it will be like, I don't know if I'm still able to manage all those tricks we want to show and we have to show at the competition to earn our points. And
it's like you got to build up all that stability and strength in your body, and then get back to the normal level, and then exceed that.
But in your mind, you want to skip all those steps in between, and you just want to start where you stopped a couple of months ago.
Yes,
and
back to patience, like you said.
Back to patience. Yeah,
it's got to be hard to have all that patience after a decade and a half. You're like, come on. That's funny. Yeah. Sebastian, thank you for taking so much time. I know I snuck in a little extra question there, but I'm glad that we touched on that, because that was, it's been really, really cool, not only to hear your thoughts and all these things, but also like for selfishly, like having watched your videos and we've never corresponded before. So the fact that we've now met and we've had this great conversation is like, my younger version of myself is freaking out and excited right now.
Thank you very much. That was a good conversation, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk a little bit about my experience and jump rope. And thank you very much. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm sure at some point we'll have to do a round 2 or something, because this was really fun.
I'm ready.
Awesome. Alrighty, let's just keep going. Right. I'm just kidding. So I'll let you get back to your day.
All right, thank you.
Hey, it's Nate again. That was really fun to chop it up with Sebastian. He is amazing. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our full discussion. If you can, it'd be really great if you sent this off to someone that you think would also enjoy the episode. It really helps spread the sport, and it especially helps with spreading discussions like transitioning out of the competition scene, which is very huge for a lot of competitors. Also, if you're not fully satisfied and want even more jump rope stuff, check out my website, natekg.com/new. That's /NEW. That is a web page that's got my most recent YouTube and Instagram posts. There's a quick form to sign up for my weekly email newsletter. There's a new podcast link there, all the good stuff. So definitely check that out if you want more jump rope things. And that's it for now. Hope you have a good rest of your morning, evening, lunch, whatever time it is for you right now. All right, I'll see you in the next podcast.